The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Elena Vasquez placed her data tablet on the crystalline podium with deliberate care. The gesture, simple as it was, sent ripples of unease through the assembled delegates. Anna Chen, Earth's chief diplomatic aide, stood rigid beside Oliver McGregor, the head of Human Security Forces, both watching their ambassador with expressions carved from stone. "The Terran Confederation," Elena began, her voice carrying across the vast amphitheater without amplification, "hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council." Effective immediately, the chamber erupted. 17 species representing 43 worlds began vocalizing their protests in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. The Velkari Prime Minister rose on his multiple legs, his translator crackling with indignation. "You cannot simply leave. The protocols, the treaties, have been honored to their conclusion," Anna interjected smoothly, stepping forward with a data crystal. "All contractual obligations fulfilled. All debts settled. All knowledge-sharing agreements completed as specified. We owe nothing, and we take nothing that isn't ours." Oliver's jaw tightened as he surveyed the room. He'd spent 15 years protecting human interests in this nest of vipers. 15 years watching humanity give and give while others took and criticized. The Zenthari had needed food when their agricultural collapse threatened millions. Humans had responded within days. The Pelixians required military support against the Kresh incursion. Human Marines had bled on foreign soil. And through it all, every council session brought the same refrain. Humanity was too aggressive, too independent, too dangerous. "This is because of the frontier vote," the Quellan ambassador hissed, her skin shifting through angry reds and purples. "You're abandoning us over one decision?" Anna's laugh was sharp enough to cut atmosphere. "One decision? Shall we review the record?" She activated her tablet and holographic text materialized above the assembly. 47 proposals for human colony protection, denied. 23 requests for fair trade modifications, denied. 62 humanitarian missions requiring council authorization, obstructed or delayed until crisis points were reached. The vote to deny humans the right to settle the frontier sector was simply the final confirmation, Elena added quietly. "You made it abundantly clear where humanity stands in your grand vision. We're useful when you need soldiers, engineers, or miracle workers. But when we request basic rights to expand, to grow, to secure our own future, suddenly we're the threat." The Velkari Prime Minister's vocal sac inflated with agitation. "The frontier sector has spiritual significance to the Yelthan collective. Your expansion threatened holy sites." "There were no holy sites," Oliver interrupted, his voice a low rumble that somehow commanded attention. "Our survey teams found nothing. The Yelthans claimed territory they'd never visited, never documented, and certainly never consecrated. It was political maneuvering, pure and simple, and you all knew it." He stepped forward, and despite being among the smallest species in the room, something in his bearing made the nearest delegates unconsciously retreat. "Every single one of you knew it was fabricated justification. But voting with the Yelthans gave you leverage in other negotiations. Humanity was the currency you spent to buy favor with each other." The Dravian ambassador, a floating crystalline entity, chimed in with synthesized concern. "Humanity has benefited enormously from council membership. The technology shares alone were mutual exchanges," Anna cut in. "Shall we itemize? Humanity provided fusion containment improvements that increased your energy efficiency by 40%. We shared our medical nanotechnology that has saved millions of Dravian lives your species cannot naturally regenerate. We gave you the Shaw Kimura drive modifications that reduced your fleet's fuel consumption by 30%. She paused, letting the silence stretch. "In return, you shared standard warp equations we'd already derived independently, basic material science we'd developed parallel versions of, and stellar cartography we were mapping ourselves. The exchange was never equal. You just convinced yourselves it was." The Quellan ambassador's colors shifted to conciliatory blues. Perhaps we can renegotiate. Open discussions about frontier expansion rights, more equitable voting procedures. No." Elena's single word fell like a verdict. "Humanity is done negotiating with those who negotiate in bad faith. We're done being the muscle you call when the Kresh raid your borders, the engineers you summon when your infrastructure fails, the scapegoat you blame when your own populations grow restless. She gathered her materials with practiced efficiency. Anna and Oliver flanked her, a united front. The withdrawal is complete. All human personnel will evacuate council facilities within 72 hours. We're recalling our peacekeeping forces, our engineering corps, our medical teams, and our diplomatic staff. You'll leave us vulnerable. The Pelixian delegate's translator couldn't quite capture the panic in his multi-tonal voice. The Kresh have been probing our defenses monthly. Without human marines, you'll have to defend yourselves, Oliver said flatly. Novel concept, I know. Might I suggest negotiating with your attackers? I hear you're all quite skilled at that. The sarcasm wasn't lost on anyone. The Kresh had ignored every peace delegation, every treaty offer, every attempt at communication the council had made. Only human military intervention had kept them at bay, and everyone in the room knew it. Anna accessed one final document. For the record, humanity is not abandoning galactic civilization. We're simply abandoning this council. We'll maintain our existing bilateral agreements with individual species who wish to continue relationships on equal footing. Several of you have already contacted us privately about such arrangements. A ripple of suspicious glances circulated the chamber. Who had broken ranks? Which species were hedging their bets? As for the rest, Elena concluded, we wish you well. May your consensus building serve you better without humanity to blame for your failures. She turned to leave, then paused. One final note, the hyperspace relay network humanity maintains, the one that enables instantaneous communication across the sector. We built it. We maintain it. We're taking it offline for council frequencies in 30 days. You'll need to develop alternative communication systems. The implications crashed through the assembly like a shockwave. Without that network, the council would fracture into isolated pockets, unable to coordinate defense, trade, or governance. It would take decades to build a replacement. That's blackmail, the Velkari Prime Minister bellowed. That's property rights, Oliver corrected coldly. We built it with human resources, human ingenuity, and human labor. It was never council infrastructure. You simply used it without consideration that it might not always be available. Anna, Elena, and Oliver walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. As they reached the massive doors, the Dravian ambassador's crystalline voice rang out, "What do you expect us to do?" Elena paused at the threshold, looking back at the assembled powers of the galaxy. For 15 years, she'd watched them squabble, scheme, and belittle humanity's contributions. Now, as they stared at her with something approaching fear, she felt only weary satisfaction. "Figure it out," she said simply. "You're the Galactic Council, the wisest species in known space, or so you constantly remind us. Surely you don't need humanity for everything." The doors sealed behind them with a definitive hiss. Outside, a human transport waited, engines already humming. As they boarded, Oliver allowed himself a thin smile. "Think they'll manage?" Anna shook her head. "The crash will hit them within 6 months. The relay network's collapse will fragment their response. Internal conflicts will escalate without human mediators. They'll tear themselves apart inside 5 years." "Not our problem anymore," Elena said, settling into her seat as Earth rose in the viewport. Blue, beautiful, and entirely self-sufficient, they made their choice. Now they get to live with the consequences. The transport lifted away from the council station. Behind them, through the viewport, Anna could see lights flickering on the massive structure. Emergency meetings being called. Frantically attempts to undo what couldn't be undone. Humanity had given the galaxy everything asked of them, and had been repaid with condescension and restriction. Now the council would learn the hardest lesson in the cosmos. You don't appreciate what you have until it quietly, decisively, walks away. And humanity. Humanity would be just fine, they always were, and